Hi, I'm Erin Mays.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Kosayan.
Thanks for joining us. Today we're here to talk about design research in a nonlinear world, adapting to a ubiquitous playground of content. Together, Cynthia and I have backgrounds in anthropology, sociology, design, architecture, and business. Today we're presenting some thoughts we've had on our research practice and how it's been evolving. We'll go pretty quickly though, we have 10 minutes. When we studied social sciences in college, we learned a systematic way of understanding topics and issues. We were taught how to move from problem recognition and definition to creating a research plan to sampling and data collection through to data analysis and reporting out the results. We learned traditional research tools like one-on-one interviews, ethnography, observation, and surveys. As you're probably aware, this is a very linear process. This linear process that we were taught had a finite number of data points to work with, well-defined methods. There was always that defined period when the data collection ended and there was nothing else to look at. Then we graduated school and went to work at a design consultancy. Our real-life experiences outside of academia have been anything but linear, to say the least. And we've worked on a range of projects, research and design programs over the past couple of years, and we've been thinking critically about the linear path that we learned in school and how it relates to what we do now. And what we realized, a linear process is not exactly what we do. In fact, it's much different than how we do it.
Exactly. We feel like we do things differently than we were taught, in a good way. This is due in part to the shifting nature of information and in part to who we are. In a program we did recently for a technology client, we studied digital and analog content management and became very immersed in digital natives and digital immigrants, a term coined by Mark Prensky. He uses the term to draw an analogy about people's understanding of technology to a country's natives, who find the local region, language, and cultural means as natural and indigenous, compared with immigrants who, when new to a country, often need and are expected to adapt and begin to adopt to local culture. So, Erin and I, along with all the other young people entering the workforce, are digital natives. We are at home and comfortable with technology. Well, we grew up with it. It's part of our culture.
We are different practitioners dealing with completely different sets of data than our predecessors did. Today, for instance, data is scattered, and we're talking about digital and analog data. And it's pervasive. There are pools of data everywhere, and they're constantly being updated, filtered, created, archived, basically just sitting around waiting to be mined. So how about this? According to Don Tapscott, between the dawn of civilization and 2003, there were about 5 exabytes of data collected. An exabyte equals 1 quintillion bytes. So think about that. Today, 5 exabytes of data gets collected every 2 days. That's a lot of data. This is in large part because of user-generated content. There's limited filtration, for better or for worse, and anyone's voice can be heard through the web at any time.
So how do we deal with all this data? This new, endless stream of data requires new tools to process and make sense of. So as digital natives, our brains are trained specifically to deal with this challenge. I mean, we're not neuroscientists by any means, but we know that brains are malleable and can change depending on how they are used. Tapscott cited a study of London taxi drivers. He showed that a certain region of the brain involved in memory formation was physically larger than in non-taxi driving individuals of a similar age. As part of their jobs, taxi drivers need to memorize the multitude of London streets, which actually drove structural brain changes in the hippocampus. So as digital natives, we have been immersed in digital information for most of our lives. Our brains are structured to deal with a constant flow of information and assimilate a big picture from different sources. These changes in mindset allow us to approach design research in new ways with new tools adapted to our purpose.
As digital immigrants navigate this ubiquitous and crazy terrain, there are constantly new things to learn and adapt to. And we want to share some of the challenges that we face in our own research process and how we overcome them as digital natives. So first, let's look at information overload. There is a danger of too much information. How do you know where to stop? The web offers endless amounts of information, which creates challenges from scheduling with clients to planning the research project and how to even explain the approach to clients in the first place. Then there's determining the credibility and relevance of the information. How do you know if something is credible and relevant to the topic you're studying, especially with so much out there? There is very limited filtering before publication online, and most people put up anything their heart desires. And then there's handling new information as we communicate with our clients. So what do you do when last minute some info or stats come in and they may have just been published or just discovered and they seem so incredibly relevant to your program, so relevant that you feel you might be doing a disservice by leaving them out? How do you explain that to a client? Let's look at a few case studies to see how we've dealt with these challenges.
Okay, so first let's look at dealing with info overload. There's too much information for any one person to handle, especially with sizable programs that require in-depth yet unguided research into new topics. So what do? First, It's important to go wide. Gain a comprehensive understanding of the topic and see what themes and subtopics start to rise to the top. Then, assign people areas of focus. Areas will always overlap, but by having a main focus, you allow someone to follow endless links and paths without worrying about other topics. This works really great at the beginning of a program. When we were studying the way people work for a major consumer electronics and technology giant, I personally was in charge of work style and organizational structure trends, and Erin was focusing on specific companies making shifts in the workplace, and while other members of our team were focusing on other topics. With so much information trapped in the computer, knowledge transfer is absolutely critical. We get as much information as we can off the computer and onto the boards around us as we go. We begin creating infographics and charts. At SKD, we use different tools called process maps and thread matrices to offer unique ways of handling and digesting large amounts of important information. These tools are specifically useful when we have primary field research in addition to secondary research that needs to be triangulated. Recently, we studied the patient intubation process from the time people were admitted to the time they were released from hospital. Creating a process map allowed us and our designers to follow the typical process to gain deeper insights into pain points, problem areas, and opportunities.
So now that we have all that information, also equally as important is determining relevance and credibility of the information that we found. Luckily, the internet is so widespread that it's easy to check sources, look for duplicate information, and know whether or not a person's opinion seems to be an outlier. Another way to get credible information is by tailoring research programs to the topic at hand. For instance, we were studying gamers to inform the design of a laptop computer for a major consumer electronics manufacturer, and we screened individuals who were absolutely addicted to computer gaming. This is a demographic that lives online. Not only are they playing computer games, but they are posting photos on social networks, chatting with their friends, and living and breathing by the computer. We tapped into their natural habits by asking them to blog about their experiences. We set up accounts using a Tumblr platform, which could be updated through traditional means of a web browser, just by logging on, but also through text messages, emails, voice memos, and other inputs. By understanding that our audience was made up of technologically savvy digital natives, we were able to develop strategies that not only helped them provide more data inputs, but also got us all the information that we needed. So we had to be willing to accept the data input in any way we received it, however and whenever it arrived.
And finally, how do you communicate all this information to your clients as it's discovered? This way of conducting research is not just new to researchers, it's new to the clients as well. It's hard enough to trust the creative leap when company revenues are depending on it. Throw in the uncertainty of an iterative, never-ending design research problem, and some clients are understandably nervous. But the same technology that enables our research helps us to communicate information to the client, which helps instill trust. We can work with our clients, sending video updates. By seeing our process, the client is aware of our approach, the content we're researching, and the findings we're uncovering. This allows a project to be flexible and adaptable to the findings, while making sure the client is comfortable with the changes we make and the directions we take. All this makes sure the client is not shocked at the end of a very adaptable project.
All this being said, we value the way we were taught the research process in our social science studies, as it is the critical foundation for what we're doing now. But because real-world research is in the digital age, as everything is, it is anything but linear, and researchers need to adapt their process of conducting and communicating research. We work at a design and innovation consultancy in Los Angeles, California, and if there's one thing we've learned, it's that research benefits by taking cues from the design process. We immerse ourselves completely, we get inspired, we follow different paths, we try new things, all the while working towards a sound and learned conclusion.
By taking this approach, our results are richer and more dynamic, and we're delivering real results to our clients. Use the computer, take the internet seriously, but make it real. Put the information on the walls, surround yourself. Tailor research programs to work for you by tapping into the native abilities of your target audience, whether they be gamers or grandparents. Embrace digital natives, both the ones you work with and the ones you research. Tailor your research programs to work for you by tapping into their native abilities. And don't be afraid to have open conversations with your client as you go. Keep them involved, so when you're diving into something brand new a week before the final presentation is due, they'll be excited, not worried.
Thank you so much for listening to our presentation today. We have so many more thoughts on this topic, way more than could possibly be covered in 10 minutes. So let's keep the conversation going. Feel free to email us any questions or comments. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.